So Dr. K starts off the episode talking about two fundamentally different ideas that mean the same thing. So Vidya and Gyan are two Sanskrit terms, and this quote gets you down the path to know what they're actually talking about because they both mean knowledge, but the understanding doesn't exist in the book. If the understanding was in the book, anybody who read it would get the understanding, but the understanding comes from within you. So this basically is an analysis of Western like practicing of knowledge and overall intelligence and education versus the Eastern tradition. And this idea of vidya is information, right? It's knowledge that you can almost reiterate. But just because you know something doesn't mean you understand something at like a foundational protocol level. So he uses the example of I can read so many books on business. I can read so many books on meditation. I can read so many books on biology. But unless you actually understand how these things work, how to create a service that provides value to others, how to actually build a balance sheet that has more assets and cash generating assets than liabilities and expenses. Unless you have an actual understanding of that and what makes it tick per se, then that is vidya. Whereas gyan is like that light bulb moment. And what's interesting is some people just know things. I like to go back to like Good Will Hunting, one of my favorite movies. He discusses when Beethoven or Bach, when they look at a piano, they don't see the white chords on a piano with the black. I mean, I can't play the piano for my life, but they see a beautiful language that they can translate to symphony. Just like Will Hunting sees a complex math problem, and for him, it just makes sense. And it's inspirational because it means that there is a gift, and that's what we call it, right? Whether it doesn't matter if you're from the Eastern practice or a Western practice, we call it a gift when somebody just has a unique and insanely impressive grasp on a specific skill. Because it seems like that was given to them by someone or something like a god, like God. And that is Gyan. Dr. K uses a really interesting example. It was a kind of a funny example in the podcast talking about his child, I believe it was his daughter, basically coming to an understanding of how wasabi works because information doesn't change behavior. So he said that he told his daughter that the wasabi would be spicy. She didn't believe him. She takes a small bite of the wasabi, thinking that it was going to taste like, green paste or whatever. And to quote him, he says, you can literally see the gyan in real time happening when, the wasabi hits the back of your throat. And for those of us who have had wasabi before, which I'm sure most of us have, you understand. And what's really cool, what I appreciated about this was how he was able to compare and contrast like what's valued in each society. So in Western science, like, we understand there is a lot of value in knowing a lot of information because of the way that our medical service and a lot of our, overall like public health services and things are deployed is through the average person. You're not getting personalized healthcare in many regards. You're given a food pyramid of like the average person should have this number of calories per day or take in this much protein per day. Whereas the Eastern traditions are much more like customized, which is much, much more difficult to scale. There's a reason why Western science has been so successful in terms of eradicating diseases and all that type of stuff. But in the Eastern tradition, when it comes to these really like deep questions of who am I and how do I, fulfill my role on this planet, it becomes a much more intrinsic, personalized question versus where sometimes in the West, it's just like, No, don't ask that question. Just go to school, get a job, and try to, escape the rat race.